Good morning. For history today, we are starting a brand new unit. It doesn't feel super different because it's actually kind of continuing the last two units that we've done, I would say. But we are starting a whole unit on exploring North and South America, specifically focusing on North America. So we have heard about the Native American tribes throughout North America and a little bit getting into South America. And we heard about the Vikings starting to travel over to the west. So we are going to be kind of combining those two. We know that the Vikings are starting to move west towards North America. The Native Americans were already there. Well, this is basically another third group of a bunch of explorers who started to come to North America. And that's how really a lot of what we currently have in our country became developed, as a lot of the Europeans started to come over to the United States especially. So let's begin this. I have a book posted in Bright Thinker so that at any time after this video, if there is something that you wanted to look up again or read again on your own, you are welcome to do that. So exploration of North America is going to start this chapter with two famous explorers. One of them is probably very familiar to you. The other one, maybe you don't know. Who is the first explorer that comes to your mind who explored North America? Possibly Christopher Columbus. He is the first one actually we're going to be studying. I hope that most of these other ones are going to be new for you, so it'll be fun and interesting. But this first one, Christopher Columbus, is possibly just a retelling of things that you've already heard. Okay, the book that I have posted in Bright Thinker, by the way, starts off with a whole section on Canada. This Exploration of North America book has a section on Canada that we'll get to actually at the end of the year, and then it gets into Exploration of North America. So keep that in mind. We'll skip down to page 25 to actually start it. So this has 6 chapters, this unit. Another one that's fairly short. The next unit, we're going to get into the 13 colonies. So extending on the exploration as we start to look at the European colonization of North America. That one's quite a bit of a longer unit to finish off the year. So early Spanish explorers. Now it says, have you ever gone looking for one thing and ended up finding something completely different? Maybe you went into the woods to gather flowers, but instead found a really interesting rock. Well, that is the way Europeans came upon North and South America. European explorers were searching for a shortcut to the East Indies. Instead, they found the West Indies and 2 continents. You already know a little about one of these European explorers. I'm going to move over here to our map since that is going to be relevant to what we're talking about today, especially. So you already know a little about one of these European explorers. Christopher Columbus was an Italian who explored for the King and Queen of Spain. Okay, now here's North and South America, the King and Queen of Spain. Spain is on the western coast, or almost the western coast, but very far west in Europe. Now the Indies, East Indies, which we're going to get into, is actually way over here close to India and China and Indonesia. These islands are what they're looking for. Obviously, they're going in the opposite direction. Now, Christopher Columbus in 1492 led 3 ships out of a Spanish harbor and began sailing west. Columbus was looking for a shortcut to the East Indies. This is east, this is west. So he was wanting to go east. The East Indies was a group of islands in Asia where valuable spices grew. Here's Christopher Columbus. Columbus was guided by 3 beliefs. He believed that the world was round. You correct about that? Yes. He believed also it was smaller than most people thought. Smaller than most people thought. We'll get into that. He also believed that he could get from Europe to Asia and the East Indies by simply sailing westward across the Atlantic Ocean. Now, if Columbus had been taking a test, he would have only been able to answer one of these three questions correctly. He was right that the Earth was round, but he was not correct in thinking it's smaller than people at the time thought, or that you could just hop from here, start going west, and you'll hit the Indies. Now, getting a globe. Now, Native Americans had been in North America already. However, most people weren't in communication with people from different continents at the time. The Spaniards and Portuguese were traveling. However, they did not know about what was happening in other parts of the world at this time. So if this is Spain, they thought, oh, well, I know this is just a bunch of ocean. We'll just hop right over there and reach the East Indies, these islands. They did not know about all of this land of North and South America, these two continents. It's understandable at the time, though. Now, Columbus had been right about the fact that the world was round, but the world was much larger than Christopher Columbus had ever imagined. And not just him, most people. As for Columbus's third belief, it turned out that a large body of land stopped people from sailing directly to Asia. This body of land became known as the continents of North and South America. Now, on October 12th, 1492, after more than a month of sailing, Columbus and his men sighted an island. Columbus went ashore and planted a flag in the sand to claim the island for the King and Queen of Spain. He believed he'd sailed all the way around the world to the East Indies, and that was why he called the native people he met Indians. So he thought that they actually were from the East Indies, not from India specifically, but from the East Indies, those islands. Now, that's why you might hear some, read in some books and hear sometimes people who are Native American called Indians, because that's what people thought they were early on, and that name stuck for quite a while. Now, in fact, Columbus had not found a new route to Asia. He had arrived in a land that was new to Europeans. It was not the world of spices that he had hoped to find, but it was still a very interesting place. The area became known as the West Indies. During the early 1500s, many Spanish explorers came to this new world. Now, Native Americans had already been living here for centuries, as they had come over from Asia on Beringia, remember? However, it's new for Europeans, so it was brand new for the people who were doing a lot of the advancement in map making and cartography and understanding the world. So it's new for a lot of the places like that were focusing on that. That also includes new to the like Roman and Greek empires, that were some of the people who were like basically they were empires impacting a lot of the countries around the world. Now, Columbus himself sailed to this new world 4 times. He set up a colony on Hispaniola, an island in the Caribbean Sea. Today, that island is the location of 2 countries, Haiti and the Dominican Republic. So here's Mexico, here's the United States, here's South America and Brazil. Hispaniola is a specific island that is now Dominican Republic and Haiti. Both countries are on that one island. Now later, the Spanish set up colonies in other parts of the Caribbean. Spanish colonies were created on the islands of Cuba and Puerto Rico, along the northern coast of South America, and on the shores of the Gulf of Mexico. The Spaniards conquered the Inca people of Peru and the Aztec people of Mexico. Wow, that was a huge accomplishment because those were ancient empires that were very, very strong and intelligent as well. You'll learn more about them in 5th grade at our school. They also began to explore lands that are part of the present-day United States. Now, Ponce De Leon, getting into a new explorer. Juan Ponce De Leon, can you try saying that? Juan Ponce De Leon was the first Spaniard to explore lands that later became part of the United States. Ponce de Leon, like Columbus, was looking for just one thing, and he ended up finding something else. Now, when Ponce de Leon was born in Spain, many historians think that he sailed to the Americas with Christopher Columbus on Columbus's second voyage. I guess we don't know for sure. In any case, by 1502, 10 years after the first one, Ponce de Leon was in the Americas. He helped the Spaniards take control of Hispaniola from Native Americans. A few years later, he led an expedition that explored and settled the island of Puerto Rico. In Hispaniola and Puerto Rico, Ponce de Leon traded in gold and enslaved people. He became very rich. He had everything a man could want. Or did he? Sadly, it was very common at that time to trade enslaved people as if they were just property. They were owned by these people. We've seen that across so many cultures all over the world over time. Now, during his travels in the Americas, Ponce de Leon heard stories about a magical island called Bimini, or Bimini, not sure exactly. According to the stories, Bimini had gold and pearls, and it was the home of a life-giving fountain. So he just hears stories about this place, and it has a life-giving fountain, as you can see here, called the Fountain of Youth. It was said that anyone who drank water from it would stay healthy and young forever. It was called the Fountain of Youth. A very wonderful thing to think about, but there's not a magical fountain, magical place where you drink the water and it actually makes you live forever. But let's see what his journey is like. Now, in the spring of 1513, another 12 years later, or 11, I think. When did we start? Yeah, 1502. In the spring of 1513, Ponce de Leon sailed north from Puerto Rico. He was eager to find the Fountain of Youth. One morning, he reached an unknown coast. Anchoring his ship, he waded through the shallow water up onto a beach. As Columbus had done, he claimed the land for Spain. And like Columbus, he gave the land a new name. The Spanish called the Easter season Pascua Florida, which means season of flowers. Can you guess where he landed? Ponce de Leon arrived on this land with beautiful flowers on Easter Sunday. So he named the area Florida. Very interesting history of the name of that. So Ponce de Leon was the first European to land on the United States, even though we hear quite a bit about Christopher Columbus being the one. But he initiated a lot of the later on explorations, including Ponce de Leon's. Now, for Ponce de Leon, Florida was a new land. But for the Native Americans who lived there, it was an ancient home. Native Americans, whom the Spanish called Indians, had lived in Florida for many generations. We've heard about that in our last unit. They hunted small animals, they fished, gathered plants, nuts, and shellfish. Native Americans lived in villages near fresh water, firewood, and stones for making tools. They traded to get things they could not make or find for themselves. They developed many traditions and ceremonies. Their way of life had grown over thousands of years. Now, as Ponce de Leon explored the coast of Florida, he met Native Americans. Many of them were prepared to fight to keep their homes and way of life. Eventually, Ponce de Leon returned to Puerto Rico, where he spent the next 7 years. So he explored and then went on back to Puerto Rico, the island in the Caribbean. Now, in 1521, Ponce de Leon decided to return to Florida to finish what he had set out to do. He wanted to set up a Spanish colony there. But the Native Americans had the same response as before. They attacked Ponce de Leon and his crew. The Spaniards were unable to build a settlement. Instead, they fled to Cuba, a different island also in the Gulf of Mexico. Or maybe not technically the Gulf of Mexico. Yeah, kind of. Now, Ponce de Leon was wounded in the fighting. He died in Cuba without ever finding the Fountain of Youth. So when Ponce de Leon had a somewhat unsuccessful journey, however, he paved the way for the later Europeans to come into Florida and the rest of the United States. So that ends chapter 1. Chapter 2 is going to be De Soto's Long March. So we'll spend some time hearing about that new explorer soon, but beginning to hear about Christopher Columbus and Juan Ponce de Leon. A few questions before we go. Oh, I guess it's just one. Now, what were the European explorers searching for when they sailed west? They went from Spain, sailing west, not knowing about all of this land here. What were they searching for? The East Indies. And they wanted specifically spices from these islands right around here. Here's China, here's India. Here are the East Indies Islands, which is not very specific to a country, but around the area of Indonesia. So I hope that you are going to enjoy this new unit. I think it's a lot of fun. We'll make sure to work in quite a lot of map work. So you can start a brand new section in your history notebook tomorrow. And I would love for you, if you can print at home, to print some of the maps that we'll cover throughout this unit. I try not to have you print too much, but this is one that I think will really help if you can print something from the maps at home. Other than that, that is all for today's lesson. I will talk to you later. Have a wonderful afternoon. Bye.